Coming up, we're following breaking news after several people were found dead in a home in South Moorhead. Details coming up. And health officials are worried about a travel-related surge as we head into 2022. Plus, holiday wreaths were laid today on the headstones of veterans locally and across the country. Valley News Live at 10 starts now.
This is Valley News Live at 10.
All right, good evening and thanks for joining us. We will have more on that breaking news coming up shortly. We're having some technical difficulties, but in other news, a 26-year-old woman is recovering tonight after her vehicle and a semi collided yesterday evening in Otter Tail County near Dalton. Minnesota State Patrol says both the car and semi were heading west on I-94 when the collision happened. It is believed snow and ice may have played a role in the crash. The woman was taken to a local hospital to be treated for non-life-threatening injuries, and the driver of the semi was not hurt. Plus, slick roads calls for an SUV to slide off the road in Beltrami County this afternoon. Authorities say the driver of the SUV and a female passenger were traveling west on Highway 72 when the vehicle slid off the road and into a ditch. The driver was unharmed, but the woman was treated at a local hospital for non-life-threatening injuries. The Republican State Committee met today in Bismarck under controversial circumstances. Joel Crane tells us more.
Despite frigid temperatures, peaceful protesters gathered outside the Republican headquarters this morning.
I'm freezing. I've been here since 7 o'clock. Kicked out of there and calling the police on us. I couldn't understand that. Calling the police on us.
The protesters assembled for two reasons. The first is that the state GOP committee meeting wasn't public. The committee conducted business behind closed doors, which protesters say isn't the norm.
I've been going to these meetings for 12 years as an observer, and this is the first time I have not been allowed into one of these meetings. Today, for some reason, it's a secret meeting.
The agenda and proposed changes are controversial for some, as are the circumstances of the meeting and its participants. One problem protesters had, due to redistricting, several district chairs were appointed by the state party chair rather than being elected by voters.
Well, those appointed chairs are here voting on business, but that means those constituencies did not elect anyone. But the mindset is that they believe that the state law allows that power to, but that's not constitutionally correct.
There's 8 members in their voting that were not elected by their constituents. They're appointed by the state chairman. That's what makes this meeting an illegitimate meeting.
Several members inside staged a walkout.
You know what I say? Hallelujah! You know what? Patriots are all here today.
There were several controversial proposed changes on the agenda, which included moving the date of the state convention from before to after the primary and charging fees as high as $5,000 to run for office. In Bismarck, Joel Crane, Valley News Live.
And meanwhile, President Joe Biden is planning to make a speech on Tuesday about the new challenges posed by the Omicron variant. According to a White House official, the president will address the growing number of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths heading into the holidays. Biden is also likely to address the fact that the latest variant, Omicron, weakens the effect of 4 major vaccines and every authorized antibody treatment. It is yet to be said that the Omicron variant of the coronavirus causes less severe disease than the Delta variant. That conclusion comes from new research out of Britain. Researchers analyzed data from more than 200,000 confirmed infections in England between November 23rd and December 11th. It found no evidence that Omicron has different severity than the Delta variant, although researchers acknowledge hospitalization data is very limited. However, people who've been infected with COVID-19 before are 5 times more likely to be infected again with Omicron than with Delta. The CDC is no longer recommending the one shot of Johnson & Johnson vaccine. That's because of a rare blood clotting issue that has now been linked to 9 deaths. But what should you do about a booster? Here's what the director of the National Institutes of Health had to say.
Well, they should get a booster from an mRNA vaccine. NIH did this study of mix and match in terms of what was your initial vaccine and what did you get boosted with. If you start with J&J and get an mRNA booster, you get a pretty good result from that.
At least 75 people have died as a result of storms that tore through the state of Kentucky a week ago. 5 tornadoes struck the area, one of which traveled more than 200 miles across the state. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear provided an update today on the recovery efforts in the state.
Missing persons based on this tornado event are at 0. Again, those are we calculate those based on people who are reported as missing, but right now it is down to 0. Our hope is that means we won't see many, maybe any more deaths, but remember there are still a number of people in the hospital.
Kentucky's governor says there are plans for putting together a program that would provide 10% of additional funding over what FEMA is awarding for citizen expenses. All right, later on Valley News Live at 10. We'll have an update on that breaking news that's happening right now, but also fallen soldiers were honored across the country with the laying of wreaths. But up next, increasing winds are expected for your Sunday. Summer has details on how gusty it could get.